Hello, this is Jim Morenz, the Executive Director of both SABER and the XchangeCore community, and we are here today to talk about some of the lessons learned about SABER visualization in a variety of different technologies. And today we're really pleased to have two presenters who are going to be joining us today from the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. Robbie Bagby, who's the GIS manager, is going to be talking about a really cool application that he developed using ArcGIS. And then Eric Kant of TrustedOps.com is going to talk about a project that he did with the National Emergency Management Association, the International Association of Emergency Managers, Public-Private Partnership. Shandi Trilar of the NEMA Private Sector Working Group worked closely with Eric, and we'll hear a little bit from her, although she's in an airport right now. So let's start out with some level setting about SABER. How do we share status? What's the mission? Mission is to be able to get business operations status from companies to impacted and support organizations, usually government, but often other private voluntary organizations and others. How do we do that? Well, there are basically three ways. One is a fully automated connection. Secondly, a manual upload of a spreadsheet, which is really the start of SABER. And then thirdly, a commercial application. Spot on Response is now a mobile app that connects with SABER. The focus for a long time was the spreadsheet, because the basic idea was that spreadsheets most companies use to report up their change, their executive management. Let's use the same spreadsheet, and in the second step, take that information and move it into XchangeCore. XchangeCore Web Service Data Orchestration, created by the Department of Homeland Security for information sharing, is the technology that sits behind the organization, which is SABER. So that spreadsheet gets manually uploaded to the saberspace.org website, and there, inside of XchangeCore, it transforms information, whether it's automated, whether it comes in through the mobile app or from the spreadsheet, into National Information Exchange Model compliant data format. It then creates a notification that allows all the other applications to consume that information. And those applications on the receiving side are portals and websites, going to incident management applications like WebUC, Common Operating Picture, a really popular one being ArcGIS Online. We'll see more of that today. Mobile apps and those that are out there doing field verification, and even a free copy of Google Earth. So with this process in place, we did, during this lesson learned for these hurricanes, we brought on some consuming organizations, those on the right, who didn't have technology. They said, how do I see the SABER data? By emailing them literally one line in an email and talking them through a literally 90-second process in Google Earth, they were able to begin consuming and displaying all the information that was provided from the left-hand side by any of those different formats. So now let's take a look at the experience and draw some lessons learned from the activities in the various hurricanes. Start out 8 o'clock Saturday night, Hurricane Harvey. Here we see a couple of things. In Texas, we see, and this is using the SABER status map as a way to illustrate this. We see a couple of things. First of all, the stars, Macy's, got some Walgreens in there, some logos from Walmart. Multiple different ways of getting that information in there, but you're able to see the depiction, and in the status map, a list of all the stores. Here, note one thing, those Hughes no credit card activity for the hurricanes. This is the first time that we were using this information. Hughes Satellite processes credit card application or current card transactions. By looking at the satellite transaction data, we could tell whether the satellite dish was being used And that became a proxy for saying, gee, if they're not doing credit card transactions, that store is probably closed. So we added that into SABER for the hurricanes and became a good indicator. Viewing this on Google Earth, you can see all that same information, as I described before, something that could be at no cost, created and composed in any site at any time very, very quickly. Another source of information display is ArcGIS Online. One of the many outputs that SABER supports through XchangeCore is a Geo RSS feed. Geo RSS feed, within a minute, can be put into an ArcGIS Online. It can then be stylized. Here we've made these little red explosion buttons or whatever they are. And in the left-hand corner, you see that all the information that is contained in any one of those formats that comes in off of the spreadsheet or the automated formats appears and is a pop-up in ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online, it did something else, another lesson learned, real practice with a new capability that was built into SABER over the summer, a Geo JSON feature. And being able to take a Geo JSON source of data, bring it into ArcGIS Online, which is able to deal with that Geo JSON data more richly than the Geo RSS feed, not because of the feed capabilities, but because of ArcGIS Online capabilities. And here it was able to turn that into a feature layer. And on the left-hand side, you see that this feature layer automatically goes in and identifies in this legend the different types of information that are contained in there, puts a different color there automatically, and then displays that same information we've been looking at across Texas, but in a feature layer that you can work with more robustly inside of ArcGIS Online. For this Geo JSON feature, we thank the California Earthquake Clearinghouse that received funding from FEMA's Hurricane Hazard Reduction Program to support that. And also some of the work was done by a member of the XchangeCore and SABER community, the University of Chicago at Illinois, some students there who were able to participate with us in this particular project. A simple browser, at least at this point, a simple browser output of Geo RSS. Grab that information, it pops up as an RSS feed, which you get your news on, your weather alerts and things like that. Same exact standard form of content. Here, I think this is the Internet Explorer perhaps, gives a nice job in the center there. You see that filter by category, gives a list of the number of items for each one of those categories, and then you can see the full textual information. So we made use of this for some people who just wanted to see a list of all the information and get some quick tabular data out of it. Another lesson learned was you've heard on the consuming side how easy it is and how we had some good experiences there. On the visualization side as well, entire new technologies came in during these hurricanes. Live Earth, very robust technology added. And here we see they're able to merge multiple sources of information. You've got the weather radar coming in there. All the blue and yellow dots are the open and closed status stores inside of SABER, all displayed here and able to do some very clever things with it. And we hope at our next XchangeCore meeting to be taking a look at Live Earth and the things that they've done in a little bit more detail. And another image just to show you in that pop-up coming off of one of those buttons, you're getting the full SABER data, the exact same things that the companies were putting in that you were seeing in other sources available inside of this new technology. Moving to the next hurricane, Hurricane Irma. And here you see Puerto Rico. A fair number of closures of Walmart stores. And Walmart is currently the first company that has provided fully automated connectivity into SABER. So if a pipe breaks in Iowa next week, you're going to see it show up on SABER. As a result, Walmart, we consider the bellwether for incident management. because we're starting to see, as soon as something is happening at that local environment that affects the status of a Walmart, it's appearing on SABER. So a very important first view of what's happening. Here, Google Earth again, just showing that Macy's started adding, and Macy's was very good in providing right after their morning status meeting, their spreadsheet was created for their purposes and then uploaded into SABER. So that every day about 11 o'clock or so, we got the most recent meetings. Here's the SABER status map, and this just shows that you can filter only on Macy's or Macy's-owned stores, and this was what it looked like in Florida on that Friday night of Hurricane Irma. Saturday, using the complex of all the automated connections, the spreadsheet connections, the Hughes satellite information, we've got more than 400 closures that we're reporting on Saturday morning. And here's Live Earth that merged warnings and radar and the SABER status and giving you information on multiple stores there. Just a beautiful view of the problem set that seemed to be taking place and unfolding. And here again, Irma's showing you it's spreading north all the way into some closures in North Carolina, a little bit in Tennessee, but lots in the Alabama and Georgia and South Carolina region. So can filter and focus on a single area or expand it out to the whole view that SABER is getting of a nationwide set. Now we're going to move into the next one, Hurricane Maria. Similar things, but compare this number of Walmarts to the others in Hurricane Maria, which were only about a half of those. You recall Hurricane Maria was sort of hit the eastern and northeastern end of the island. That's where most of the bellwether reports from Walmart were looking. Here, the entire island is covered, north, south, east, and west. Very quickly, I can get an understanding that Maria looks like from the ground is going to be worse than Irma, more extensive. Here we see Sears and Walmart and CVS, a bunch of hotels in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, all reporting in through SABER. And then here, this is an indication of growing loss as we follow this through time. You can see it in Google, you can see it in ArcGIS Online, you can see it in the Spot On Response SABER map. Things are spreading and more companies are reporting in, showing that there is loss here that is, we're going to see, unimaginable. Now turning to Hurricane Nate, and here I say only slightly tongue-in-cheek that Mother Nature finally tired out, although it was significant for some of the places that were affected by it in comparison to others, not very much. And here also, just one illustration on Hurricane Nate, the SABER status map, and if you can see that location there, Dick's Sporting Goods. This is a brand new company, and we brought on a couple, but Dick's Sporting Goods, we brought them on, worked with them over the space of probably less than 24 hours to see what they were giving to their executives. We reviewed that, made a couple of suggestions. They came back with a composite of our ideas and their current executive spreadsheet, gave them the ability to upload that on Saberspace. And if you go into Saberspace, you'll see the Dick's Sporting Goods button, and they now are able to go in and upload the information. Here, their store in Pensacola, what they were reporting was the fact that it was limited hours, closing early on Saturday and not opening until late on Sunday. Real-time information coming in from a variety of different stores. Now, I want to turn it over to Robbie Bagby in Georgia, who has an extraordinary application of the data for Georgia Emergency Management Agency.
SABER data is a good indicator of where damage, power outages, and fuel shortages are occurring. So as Jim was saying earlier, when we're seeing the no card activity, that's a good indicator that that business is closed and there's nothing going on there at the time. Fuel shortages are a good thing to know, especially with evacuations from Florida. That's something that's unique to Georgia, is we get a lot of evacuees coming up through the state when hurricanes are about to arrive in Florida, and we have to monitor the situation as far as are we running out of fuel, and are people going to be stranded on the side of the road in certain places? So I don't know exactly how many reports came in total because we weren't saving the data as we were ingesting it. But when we were monitoring our dashboard that we had the data plugged into, at one time we saw up to 500 reports of disruptions coming in across the state. So this is just a simple graph to show the workflow of how we were able to bring the SABER Geo RSS Feed in and automate that to right over to an ArcGIS Online feature service. So basically, we started by creating a empty feature service, and you can do this with ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro to create your data with a schema that matches the SABER Geo RSS feed. So then we use Geo Event Server. It's another product of Esri's, and we created an input to poll the Geo RSS feed every 5 minutes. And we set it up to only receive new data. That way we didn't have duplicates in the data source. So from there, while we're in Geo Event Server, we're able to map the fields that are in the Geo RSS feed over to the ArcGIS Online feature service. And then once we have our data in ArcGIS Online, we create the web map. And this was our desire to take this route as opposed to just plugging the feed directly into ArcGIS Online, which you can do. But we wanted more customization over the data, such as the symbols, the pop-ups, and having access to the underlying table so we could create graphs and things like that to separate out and visualize the data a little better. So once we have our map set up in ArcGIS Online, we can share that to an application called Web App Builder, and we chose to use the dashboard theme just for simplistic purposes so we could quickly visualize and summarize the data. So I'm going to hop over to my other screen here. All right, so this is how the raw data looks as it's coming in, and obviously it's hard to visualize this from a mapping perspective. So what we want to do is take this feed and transform it into GIS data. So as I said, we basically start by creating an empty feature service in ArcGIS Online. And as you can see here, we've got just a couple fields set up to ingest that data. So once we have our empty feature service set up to accept the data from the RSS feed, we hop into Geo Event Server, and this is just a basic configuration. It's nothing fancy. We have our SABER RSS input connector, so you can see the URL there that we got from Jim, and we're plugging that in, and we're polling that service every 5 minutes, and we're only receiving new data. So we have a field mapper processor that just basically matches the fields up between the source data, which is the RSS feed, and then the target, which is the feature service in ArcGIS Online. And then we have our output connector that is creating the it's actually writing the data over to the feature service from the RSS feed. So it's pretty simple. It's not hard to configure at all. So once we have our data created from Geo Event Server into ArcGIS Online, we plug it into our web map, and this is where all the configurations are done. So as you can see, earlier, we do have data coming in here, and we can also monitor Geo Event Server, and you can see this is the service that we have created, and we do have data coming in and being pushed out, so we know that it's working. So hopping back over to the web map, this is where we do all of our configurations. We can configure our pop-ups, control what attributes we want to show in the pop-up to our users. We can control the symbology, and so you can see all the symbology we have set up for all the different categories. Some of these symbols are out of the box with ArcGIS Online, but using the user guide with working with the SABER data, we're able to use some custom icons that already come with this. So we could do things like Target and Walmart, Costco. They provided some symbols for us to use. And then you can symbolize your data in other ways. So I copied this layer in the map and symbolized it as a heat map layer. So you can see most of the reports were actually coming in from Atlanta. So we had a lot of pharmacies and gas stations, hotels and things like that that were showing no card activity. And most of that was occurring in the metro Atlanta area. So that was pretty cool to visualize that. So once you have your map set up in ArcGIS Online, and you have it saved, you can share it to an application. And we shared it to the web app builder. And so once you have your map shared to the application, you can hop in here and can configure the way we visualize the data even further. So we can add custom, out-of-the-box widgets. There is a Web App Builder Developer Edition that you can actually get in here and make your own widgets. But a lot of the out-of-the-box stuff is all you need. And then, like I said, we chose the dashboard theme because it was a simple way to visualize the data very quickly. So you can get in here and edit these infographic widgets, and we're summarizing the data by feature count for all the records that are coming in. And we also created this pie chart, and you can configure that. We have it displaying the feature count by category. So you can see the most records we have coming in are fuel and food. So I took it a step further, and just to do one other cool thing, and I actually did this today. Since these applications don't allow you to embed websites or iframes or anything like that in it, I took it a step further and added this application to what's called a story map in ArcGIS Online. And these story maps are really awesome. They are a one-stop shop for all your maps and applications if you're trying to brief your administration or whoever. So I've got this embedded in our active hurricanes briefing tool. So I've got all kinds of maps and data included in this application. So it was just one more place to aggregate all of our data for our administration to see. And then I added this cool little RSS widget that you can go online and find a couple different ones that are free, and then they'll just let you embed it. So since I couldn't do that in the main or in the SABER application, I just chose to throw this in the story map, and they do let you embed other websites in here. So we can kind of see it scroll through with all the different records that are coming from the feed. So like I said, we chose this route because we wanted to automate the data ingestion process as opposed to manually downloading it every so often. So this is set up. We don't ever even have to touch it, and we can throw this on the projector in our SOC, and nobody even has to mess with it. The map will automatically update on its own. So this was a great success story during Irma, and I think we had an easy win with this. So with that, that's all I have, and I'll be happy to work with anybody offline and talk more about it. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to the next person.
Great. Thank you very much, Robbie. I appreciate that. And going ahead and hand it off to Eric Cant.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim. Hey, Robbie, what a fantastic presentation. And ArcGIS Online is a phenomenal display of a no-code, low-code solution, which I'd like to talk about here. But more importantly, your organization has always been a trendsetter in information operations there at GEMA, having known and worked with those guys for many years.
Thank you. Yeah, we like, I like, go ahead.
Oh, please go ahead, Robert.
What's that?
No, thank you. Okay, I'll just get started here because we're going to show another low-code solution that allows information operations to occur seamlessly across domains. And the work we did here was primarily with the International Association of Emergency Managers. I'm the chair of the Digital Engagement Committee and the National Emergency Managers Association. Shandy chairs the Public-Private Partnership. And both of us, including Joel Thomas, who's not here today, couldn't attend, are on an information sharing task force and have been for some time. And some of the work with Jim goes back over a decade when him and I worked on information sharing projects for DHS Science and Technology. What you're looking at here is the dashboard and more of a portal that we built out to aggregate multiple sources, multiple domains. And while I do love the ArcGIS Online stuff, when you're dealing with big regional disasters like we were, you ended up having 15 COPs to look at, not just one. And we took it upon ourselves and the National Business Emergency Operations Center and how we got hooked up with Jim and SABER to publish and put together a variety of data or information operations sources to support Harvey, Irma, and Maria. You can find this at ppp.trustedops.com. We've archived all the pages now and are no longer updating daily like we were for the storms, but we've left a lot of the pages here for you to look at. And we'll be adding more samples as we go along here. So one of the first things we did was some low-hanging fruit, and we took the SABER map and embedded it here. As you can see, this is our remote sensing and GIS page. This happened to be for Maria, and you can see here we've not only got the remote sensing briefings, but from the U.S. Department of Agriculture had a remote sensing specialist who put together a daily brief on all the available GIS layers to be combined. And you can see not only the list here, but we easily integrated, literally in a second or two, and I'll show you how this happened, the SABER application. And this is a completely interactive application with all the elements on the dashboard that we can go through and utilize just like we were on the SABER page. And this is usually a technique that Robbie alluded to, a type of iframes, but we have a magic add content button here that allows us to not only add any data source or data feed, but also web clips. So adding that was just a matter of adding a web clip to the page, and now we could work with not only this, but any other COP we wanted to add. So if we wanted to add Robbie's COP to the page, we could just web clip that in as well. Having the web clipping is a nice integration, but it's very easy with these no-code, low-code solutions to go deeper. And the tool that we happen to be using here is a very unique tool that was built by Inquitel to support multiple teams to work on task forces in the intelligence community quite a few years ago. And we've been bringing this over and using it to do more than just intelligence work. And as you can see here, we're actually not only consuming the SABER data, and you can see a variety of widgets on the page here, but all of this data is completely interactive. So now if I'm interested and want to drill down on CBS, I can click the map here and we can see my timeline change for data entry, and I can see how active they are. I can also now select and drill down even further and see the details related to just that piece. And if you notice, all of the elements on the page change based on that. Refreshing the page takes me right back to the state in which the analyst or the provider gave me the information, and I can either do additional queries or come down and select on the map for elements that I may want to interrogate further. So the map is interactive, and we can see here my NetNode tree of communications here changed based on the selection. Down on the bottom here, we have all of the raw data. And what we did, and how we did this, I'll show you in a second, was we actually took the categories in SABER and broke them up so we could do more finite searches and processing of the information and create cleaner and sometimes more sophisticated graphing. Once the data is in here, the tool tells you what kind of graphs and charts you can create. And you can see here everything with an orange ring around it. And you can see what it's reading is the metadata. And if you don't have a location type, you can't create this kind of chart. But we can now very easily interrogate all the data and create a six-pack. And this will actually run and it'll create us a new dashboard based on those charts that we selected. And you can see here's our new six-pack to start interrogating this data, and we can start to make changes here, of course. One of the very interesting elements here is whether this is one data source like SABER or multiple data sources in terms of doing interdependencies between layers. We can define the information flow right through the web page. So if I had another open data source or closed data source, I can define right here in real time how the data interacts with each other on the page. And double-clicking any of these opens up the ability to set that. This becomes very, very useful when we're using this to interrogate multiple layers to find those hidden interdependencies. So not only what stores are closed, but what in relation to that store does that further affect. This is also done using a low-code, no-code solution, which you can see here. This is the actual running code for SABER. Right here is the scheduler, and then we get the data. When I said we did a little bit of processing, so here's the processing, but all of this was done with just drag and drop. We are using the Geo JSON Feed, and here we just push it out to the glass. And then it can be massaged further. You can see we have a variety of components, and so it's very easy to then take this data and put together very sophisticated models that are then just played for processing your information. And in this particular feed, we have an example of a live feed, a database, and a watch desk email address that can all be fused together, and here we've added actual machine learning components to this model. We do this already with Watson and other APIs. I'm more than happy to show that to anyone who's interested. What you've seen here is multiple technologies and multiple capabilities that is just laid out and provided in a unique and novel way. And in today's environment, where information resides everywhere and anywhere, an aggressive slice and dice tool becomes very helpful. So, Jim, I'd like to thank you very much for the time today and very appreciate your support over the years.
Well, thank you, Eric. This is great. Beautiful stuff. I think you and Robbie have taken the idea that SABER started with, saying if the data is there, they will come, and really exemplified the wonderful ways in which that data can be used for both the analytical side that you've done and the display and analysis that Robbie did. Shandi is at an airport in Miami right now and says it's really loud there, so we're not going to bring her on. I'll quote her, Eric really is the mastermind.
Well, and if you just let me chime in there real quick, Jim, because of the way we decided to roll this out, Shandy and Joel were trained on the fly on how to support everything that I just showed you. So once we decided to do this, you know that none of this happens in a vacuum. We are really a whole of community and have to support each other in these technical events. Robbie doesn't build all of that by himself. I don't build all of this by myself. And we all know, all of us that had a hand in helping the past programs know that they didn't build themselves. Shandy and Joel were critical in distributing the workload, and we did just-in-time training, and they did many of the updates that we did not and could not automate in script. So I just want to make sure their part was critical in allowing some of the more advanced work to happen.
Well, I appreciate you clarifying that, because you are absolutely right. That's why we call all these things, SABER and XchangeCore and everything else, a community. And you and I have been around for a long time, and it's great to see lots of people participating in that community now. So let me just open it up to questions.
Hey, Jim Walter here. Appreciate, again, working with you over the years, and it's been an interesting 70 days. So what I saw from this briefing, and its answers part of the question, but as we were going through August, September, October, and we were providing our data to you, you were obviously putting it on your platform. And then again, as we just heard, the NEMA platform was picking that up. We got a state now, Georgia. Who else? I know the NDOC, were they using that? And what other agencies were capturing this data and posting it on their platforms?
Yeah, so let's start at the top. We had the NBEOC. I was down at FEMA a couple of times and working with our GIS people. It was going into the FEMA Geo portal. We had a special project that was done with Lincoln Labs that had a project down there on hurricane prediction, and we moved the data into that tool. Region 4 is a regular consumer of the information. Region 6, I actually didn't know that it was happening, but one of the FEMA folks reported that Region 6 was pulling it up and throwing it into their system, and the state of Texas also was gathering it and putting it into their, I believe, into ArcGIS Online, but I heard only that it was up on their big screens. Let's see, there's the highlights. A number of other companies were looking at companies just to see how they were doing, and actually, was it you? I forget who it was that we were able to put together, because one of the companies couldn't get any reports back from some of their people in Puerto Rico, and they had a store right across the street from the other company. And I think it might have been Target and somebody. Anyhow, matched up a couple of folks who were, one was seeing the information about the other's company but couldn't get in touch with their own people to find out what their status was. So those are just some of the highlights of ones that were most involved. In the wildfires, we actually had a little bit of activity in the wildfires, and that was going through the California Earthquake Clearinghouse that was not officially mobilized, but they were using their SABER and XchangeCore tools to share among a couple of water districts that were getting overlays for fire extents and seeing what water impacts there were. So yeah, Go ahead, please.
We're doing our hurricane after action review on 7 November. And if there are any of these slides that I could just borrow or use, I just want to share with our senior leaders that we did use and we were involved with this platform as far as sharing and exchanging information. And the last thing is, over the past years, a lot of us in big box retailers are playing with you guys in the space. But in the private sector side, are there any other non-retail folks that are contributing, or are we still trying to reach out to them?
We're always trying to reach out, but most recently we've gotten, and we have not yet collected the information from them, but one of the, I'll just call them, one of the national coffee chains has signed up with SABER. So trying to move into the food business, the pharmaceutical, we had CVS and Walmart information and Walgreens information coming in this time. And then in a project out in California, we're making our first inroads into utilities. Just did an exercise with Southern California Gas last week that's starting to take a look, and water utilities as well. So getting a smattering of others outside of the retail sector. Let me thank Robbie for all your great work and your team down there and your presentation today. And Eric, as always, great working with you and some beautiful stuff. So I think these are two wonderful examples of how the community can consume the data that's provided by the private sector and make some excellent decision support tools out of it. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your participation. Bye now. All right, the microphone is now